My first agent video, I used a pretty simple version of how to explain an AI agent, and I just use an analogy of the LLM is the brain, and then the tools it has access to is the arms. In this video, I just wanted to open up the hood and dive a little bit deeper into this and hopefully explain it better so it's easier to understand. I'm Chase, and I test practical AI workflows for small teams. Without pretending that they are magic and can do everything for you, I just want to see which ones are practical and which ones you can adopt fast. This is the video that I wish personally came after every agent demo or agent reel that I've seen, where it does not talk about how smart it is, but it actually shows file structure behind it and how it actually works. Here is the basic AI agent stack. So you have the model at the center, which is the reasoning and also the language. Then you have the instructions. And this is the job description. So if you have somebody that is like a marketing assistant, it will list out the actual description of that. And then you have the context, and this is the files and data that it can actually read. You would specifically point out which files to actually take context from. And this could be messages, documents, customer requests, examples, or the current state of the project. And then we have the tools, and this is just what it can do. So if it has access to your CRM, your Gmail account, your Google Calendar account, it can actually go in and do things. Next, we have our memory state. This just allows the agent to keep track of what has already happened and the state of the project. And then we have ports, which are the connection points. And similar to tools, this is just where it can access. And then we have the loop, which is plan, then it acts, and then it observes what action it took and the results of that. And then we have the least exciting part, which is, of course, the guardrails, but this is also the most important part for your agent. It clearly outlines what is off limits to it and what it can and can't do. To go more about ports and the connection points, we have this image here, which just shows the different ports or connections it can touch. So an easy way to think about this is just where the agents touch the business. So we have the file port, which would allow them to edit and create files. We have the browser port, which allows them to go on to public web pages. So an easy way to think about this is Codex has its web browser, and then also Claude has its Chrome browser. The calendar port would just let it see dates and maybe add in new events. CRM port would allow it to connect to your CRM and then actually view leads or edit them if you give it that ability. Finance port might let it read invoices or draft a closed packet. An output port might let it create a report, queue an email, or stage a design brief. So this is where the risk does change, because when you are talking to AI, it used to be just chatting back and forth, but now the risk is it can actually touch your business. And say with the file port, it can go in and create bad documents or edit a file that you did not want to edit. It could pay for certain things if it has access to the browser port. It can mess up client records in your CRM port. So all of these things, you now have to pretty much see what it has access to and actually take into account what it could mess up. The agent loop is what makes the agent feel different than a one-shot prompt. So first, it does get a goal, and then it plans on that goal by looking at the context. Then it picks the tool, it takes an action, and then it observes what happens. And then it decides what to do next. The observation step matters a lot more than people think, because this helps actually ground the agent to determine if the steps it took in the previous 2 steps or the previous 3 steps actually happened. So did the file actually update? Did the search actually bring it back anything that works? Did the test pass? Or did the data match? I would highly recommend adding another step, especially for small teams, and that would be adding approval between certain steps, especially if the agent is sending out something public or it's talking to a customer directly, or if it has something to do with legal or financial matters. I know just looking at that chart, a lot of this is kind of abstract. So to make it less abstract, I will talk about something that I'm actually building and actually post a video on. So that workflow is the Reddit idea finder. The simple workflow version would be that it would go onto Reddit forums and other web pages similar to Reddit, find posts, summarize them, and then put them into a report. And that is useful, but it's mostly just a recipe. The more agentic version is different. The agent has a goal, which is find possible business ideas that actually relate to me and my experience. And then we have plan, which the plan is looking at my context, which is what I personally do. And I actually add in all the projects I work on and my daily or in my full-time job into this context. And so it plans using that. And then it calls the tool, which the tool in this case is the web browser, which is also a port. And then it goes and searches the specific forums I give it, which is forums like Reddit. And then it observes what people are complaining about. Then it asks itself, is this a one-time complaint or is this a repeated pain point? And then it takes that and compares that idea against my existing folders and projects and skills and business goals. And then it decides whether to research it deeper, ignore it, or turn it into a plan. And before anything gets built or sent anywhere, it stops and then asks for my approval. And that is the loop. So when people say agents can decide what to do next, this is what they mean. Not that it is magically conscious. It is using the latest results from the environment to choose the next useful step. Which leads into our next topic pretty well, which is what is a workflow versus an agent. The Reddit analogy is a good example, but basically there's another distinction that kind of helps with. But to say it in another way, a workflow is more predictable. You have step 1, step 2, then step 3. An agent is more flexible. It can decide which path to take based on what it actually sees. So as it's looking through Reddit, if it sees something that's upvoted and it actually fits my experience well, then it can grab that idea. That flexibility is useful when the path is not obvious. And this is an important part of agents because if a business path is predictable, then a workflow would be much better used. And that doesn't require creating a complicated agent for it because you can fall into the trap of creating agents for no reason. For example, if you just want to forward an email or send a monthly reminder email, you do not need to create an AI agent for this. Most of the time, you could just set up a Gmail automation with a template. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I find that a lot of people fall into that trap because they think they need to create AI agents because it's so much better. But in reality, you have to make that distinction. If it's a predictable business workflow, then just choose a simple automation for this. And that can still be enhanced by AI, but it doesn't have to be a complicated agent. Which leads into multi-agent handoffs. Similar to what we just discussed, multi-agent handoffs are not automatically better. And this is an example 1, and sometimes it's just a manager agent calling on different specialists. So if you have one for finance, one for CRM, one for marketing, or one for docs. And some examples of this is the manager agent can just ask a finance agent to summarize the cash flow, a CRM to summarize the leads, and then a marketing just to summarize the marketing campaign. The manager agent just brings us all together. Another pattern is handoff. So for example, the first agent decides this is a booking issue or a refunding issue, and then it just hands it off to the specialist agent. This only works when the different agents have specialized instructions and different tools that it can have access to, or different review rules. For example, you do not want a manager agent handing it off to the CRM if they have the same instructions and they also can touch the same tools. So if your manager agent can already access the CRM, then having it reach out to the CRM agent doesn't really make sense. So that's things you have to keep in mind. How would this actually work in practice? With it, here is something kind of easy to imagine. Is say you have it set up through your Slack, which there's a ton of videos out there on how to do this, but basically you can have your agents interact within Slack, and you just speak to your manager agent and ask them about the cash flow or him, and then basically it will reach out to those agents who have specific context around that and actual way to touch those tools, whether it's your CRM or something else. They gather up that data for that request, send it to the manager, and then the manager gives it to you in Slack. And this can work on other different UIs, for example, like Codex or WhatsApp. It's kind of hard to imagine, but the more you just start working with it, I would start off simple and then go from there. You can download certain frameworks, which are basically like harnesses for tools, and that being Hermes, OpenClaw, or Nemo Claw. Those things can help you actually build it and make it a little bit easier. The setup is a little bit technical, but you can work through that. But for the main part, I would just start basic. To be fair, it's still hard for me to imagine, even though I have agents running in my own system, but actually running it on Slack or giving other people access to the agents is something I need to explore still. But so don't feel like you're behind it if you're still trying to get a good grasp on what agents are. But to start off, I would use like Cowork or Codex to have simple agentic actions, and then they can actually read your context and you could give them access to certain tools, or you could use the new chat agents that they just came out for businesses and use that to create some agents as well that would operate. But here are some simple, easy to do agents that I would test. And that would be a weekly owner brief, a lead triage, invoice reminder drafts, customer issue summary, content pipeline monitor, internal knowledge base assistant. And with all these, notice that it just prepares the information and it does not actually make decisions based off of it. Some ones that I would not start with personally would be ones with a big blast radius, and what I mean by that is it can just affect a lot of different things. And that would be auto send customer messages. Say if somebody reaches out to you over email and you have an agent set up so it automatically replies, that would be a bad one because it could quote the customer something or give them the wrong information. If it can send, pay, post, delete, or change records or commit the business, it definitely needs some kind of approval gate. That is the line I would keep somewhere to remind myself not to do it. And with my agent structure systems, I have approval gates everywhere. I have one automation that runs where it creates new video ideas for me weekly. And just recently, I put a new gate on it because it just started stacking up. So I actually have it ask for my approval before it goes forward. And this is all based on the context it has. The deeper version of AI agents, or the brain with arms, is the model is only one part of the structure. The real system is the model, instructions, context, tools, memory, ports, loops, guardrails, and approval. In the next videos, I will continue on this idea with some Claude Cowork and exploring the plugins and what kind of agents workflows you can do with the small business plugin.